Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update. So, we have a new Avatar comic announced, but it's once again not really what I think most of the fandom actually wants. So, I say it's been announced, it's another case of Penguin Random House putting up a product listing before I assume a website like Comic Book Resources was meant to have the exclusive reveal. We also don't have the full information. We have no product description for this book, as you can see there. Just the kind of title and like other descriptive material. So yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Toph Beifong's Metalbending Academy, by Faith Erin Hicks, illustrated by Peter Wortman and Adele Matera. It's going to be $12.99. February 16th, 2021 is the release date, so that is pretty much exactly 4 months after the release of Katara and the Pirate Silver. Same creative team. That confirms to us, I suppose, this creative team here, Faith Erin Hicks, Peter Wortman, are working on one-shot books now for, I guess, the time being going forward. And then the other details here, 80 pages, so it's another 72-page book, the same length as an individual part of a comic trilogy. So it's just a basically long short story, a one-shot book, same size. You know, it has basically the same details as the Katara book that was announced previously, just 4 months apart, and then we don't have the description. So yeah, the little bit of a reaction I've seen to this so far has been very, very mixed. A lot of just meh, why should I care? It definitely feels like the comics are going backwards just based on what we know right now, which is that we have the Katara book in October and then this book next year. Everything else Dark Horse have announced is just a bunch of reprint books of like library edition of this, omnibus edition of that. No move just yet on a new comic trilogy for Korra or Avatar. I'm shocked, honestly, that this was announced before the next Korra comic, given that the Korra comic is the thing we're waiting for. That's the announcement that we were sort of like expecting, given that like that's been the thing that's been sort of teased the most. Like they were doing the Turf Wars live streams, and like they teased it there. Rachel Roberts teased it in one of the interviews that she did, but no sign of that just yet. But the fact that this has been leaked means that there is a news article coming. That's the thing to take from this, is that we are going to learn more about this book. I suppose we'll get the description there, and maybe hopefully along with that a description of like why they're doing the books in this way, why they're deciding to do solo books at this stage and not do anything else. Maybe there's also another announcement with that, because this, I think even more so than the Katara book, just feels like aggressively average. The Katara book at least like looks interesting. Katara on her own, involved with pirates at sea, you know, powerful waterbender. That at least seems interesting. She's going to be in her element to a degree, but on a pirate ship with pirates. But who are the pirates? There's at least a dynamic with the Katara book, even if the setting isn't what anyone really wants, and the fact that the potential for anything particularly huge to happen isn't great. Here, though, the core dynamic is one we already very much know about. We know about Toph's dynamic with her metal bending student. This is going to give a chance to go more in depth, of course, and I suppose learn more about Hotun, the Dark One, and Penga. But they've appeared in 3 of the comics already: The Promise, The Rift, and North and South. And I'm not going to say that like they're super fleshed out, because they are ultimately still just minor characters, but they are also metal bender number 2, 3, and 4 in the Avatar universe, and that's significant. But the cover leads you to believe that, oh, is this still during the period where it is primarily Toph training them? So it has to be set after The Promise. So it could be set before the Rift or just after the Rift, but they're already relatively skilled in the Rift, so if it's still her training them, it's probably before then. That like the promise they broke through the sort of barrier to just learn how to metal bend full stop. Now is it more about learning techniques? But I suppose it's hard to see what the twist is with this, because the promise already did a lot of the stuff you'd expect a book like this to do, like the duel with the firebending character from Kunio, I think it was, in the promise. Toph doubting herself as a teacher, that dynamic's been done. So unless this is going to introduce us to some of her like other students that she gets in, or really heavily focus on the 3 characters in the background there, I'm not sure what they're going to do here. And it just leads me to believe that, like, okay, look, I'm very convinced at this point the next Avatar comic from Faith Aaron Hicks and Peter Wortman after Toph is going to be another one-shot book. And I'm going to guess it's going to be focused on either Aang, Zuko, or Sokka. My guess at this stage would be Sokka, because he's the one who probably needs it the most. And at least that would have attention, because Sokka hasn't got a lot of sort of solo attention in the comics. Whereas Toph and Katara have sort of been like almost like the stars of a few of the books. Sokka needs his chance to shine. But it's more of like characters like Suki who would actually really benefit from having a book to themselves, rather than the main cast here. But I suppose from a marketing point of view, they would maybe worry Suki, would she sell the book, versus Katara and Toph will sell books. Look, it's hard to really pass a ton of judgment on this book until we get any sense of the description. But just the sort of bluntness of the cover here. The book is called Toph Beifong's Metalbending Academy. It's stuff happening in the school. Doesn't fill me with hope that this is going to be the book that will make 2021 a great year for Avatar comics. And that's it. Like that's where they are. Like Dark Horse have created this situation themselves by not announcing these books as sort of extra books in addition to mainline comics, but being the only things out there. That's the big issue, ultimately. No one would have a problem with Katara and the Pirate Silver or Toph Beifong's Metalbending Academy if these were additions to a Korra comic trilogy and an Avatar comic trilogy. But the fact that they are making up like 8 months plus of Avatar comics, seemingly, right now, that's where the problem comes in. That we've went from actually getting continuation content in the trilogies on both sides to now going backwards completely. And that, like, I don't expect to see too much of a connection from either of these 2 books to stuff that's to come. But we'll see. We'll see when they actually do come out. Like, as much as I'm sort of being a little bit negative here, like, of course, I'm going to read both of these books. I'm going to buy both of these books. I think most Avatar fans are. But it's also important to note that, like, is it really the content that we want? No. Is this what the fans have been asking for in terms of a format change and going to tell more solo stories? No. People were more talking about stuff like, can you use a solo book to tell, like, Iroh's backstory? Why could... And that's the thing, like, if they announced a book and it was just like Avatar The Last Airbender, hyphen Iroh, everyone will be all over that. Because it's Iroh and it's, like, unexpected. They're giving Iroh central cover treatment. And even if it's maybe not his full backstory, there's at least the hint that it could be something interesting. Whereas the second they start putting the main characters on the front, and maybe in situations where it doesn't feel like anything's going to happen, it's like, is this just, hashtag tie-in comic? Which has always been my thing with the Avatar comics, is that, like, they're not your usual tie-in comics where they just don't feel particularly important. That you are not missing out by not reading these tie-in comics. Avatar's comics up to now have been must-read, like pretty much all of them. But they have stumbled recently. Not with the core comics, because Runes of the Empire was a great sort of return to form there. But, like, Team Avatar Tales recently. Who's talking about that book? Like, I think everyone's forgetting that book came out and got no attention whatsoever because it didn't really have anything going on in terms of its news stories. And now they're, to a degree, delivering us sort of almost what feels like that level of short story, but it's the main books that we're getting. That just feels weird when everyone is asking for, can you give us content set in between Avatar and Korra? That's what everyone wants to be fleshed out, so we can understand the characters better. We can get to filling in some very weird gaps in these characters which we've known for so long. Yet they seem set on denying, taking that away and not doing it. It's very weird, and I just do not understand the sort of direction behind the scenes of the comics. That we are going into, in I suppose a year or two, a weird era for Avatar where the focus is going to be on the live action Netflix show, but that's really, for the most part, got nothing to do with the comics or the books. So, but it is going to take attention away from them. Yet they're switching up that material to be weaker. I don't get it. And it just, to me, screams that unless we get an announcement and it includes the next Korra comic trilogy, 2021 is not shaping up particularly well, because right now there's no novel announced for next year, whereas 2020, take away Shadow of Kyoshi, 2020's not been great. Yes, we got Ruins of the Empire Part 3, and then we're getting Katara the Pirate Silver in a couple of months, but like that's it. Like, Shadow of Kyoshi saved this year, basically. And we knew that going into this year we were going to get it. The same is not the case for next year. So if it's pretty much just like 2 solo books, that looks to be the worst year for Avatar comics yet. But again, we do know there's a Korra comic coming. So yeah, there's not really a lot to talk about, I think, beyond that. Just that I basically have the same reaction as the Katara comic, except double down, basically, because they still haven't explained what's going on with the direction, the roadmap situation that I think most people have an issue with, of just us never knowing where we're going with things. Final thing here is just that tonight is the Avatar Comic Con panel from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. San Diego time. And yeah, they have the YouTube link here on the website, of course. Michael Dante DiMartino, Faith Erin Hicks, FC Yi, Jean Luen Yang. We know it's been pre-recorded, like I suppose a week or two ago. So I personally don't expect a lot of news from this, but maybe it's one to watch just to see if Mike maybe says something about, like, I'm working on some books right now. That might confirm to us that he's still the Korra comic writer. Faith Erin Hicks might actually reveal to us what the situation is with the solo books and how that's going to work. Maybe FCE will say something about future books. Doubt it, though. And then Jin Yang, I sort of wonder, like, is he there just to talk about the books that he did work on, or may he be returning? I don't know. I don't personally expect a lot of news, but the fact that it was pre-recorded maybe gives, like, some hope that there's maybe something planned outside of just, you know, a conversation between creators. We'll see what happens. I'm very interested to see how many viewers there are in the chat later on for this panel. I'm going to be watching it live myself. I'll do a video later on as well afterwards to cover it. Whether there is or is not information, I'll cover it, because I think either way I'm going to have to do a video to cover whenever I suppose this gets officially announced, which I'm guessing might have to be today. We'll see. I think it's either going to have to be Friday. Yeah, it's either going to have to be today, tomorrow, or Sunday. I'd be shocked if they left it into next week to do it, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. Toph Beifong's sMetalbendingAcademy is the next Avatar comic. What are your thoughts on the direction of comics at this point? How do you feel about this? But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.